The grand chamber of the Galactic Empire's High Council glowed with soft blue light from the floating holograms. 12 council members sat around the circular table, their faces showing worry as they looked at the latest reports. These weren't just any reports. They were about a newly discovered species that had everyone concerned. "This cannot be right," said Council Leader White, his three-fingered hand tapping on the floating screen. "How can a species this young already have colonies on 15 planets?" The other council members murmured among themselves. They had ruled the galaxy for over 10,000 years, and never had they seen anything like this. The reports showed a species called humans spreading through space at an alarming rate. "The speed of their advancement is unusual," said Military Commander Stone, his gray skin reflecting the blue light. "They went from basic space flight to faster-than-light travel in just 100 years. This breaks all known patterns of civilization development." A younger council member named Green leaned forward. "Perhaps we should send a diplomatic team. Learn more about them." "No," Commander Stone shook his head. "Our stealth ships have been watching them. These humans, they're always fighting. Among themselves, against nature, against anything that stands in their way. They're dangerous." Just as Council Leader White was about to speak again, something impossible happened. The air in the center of the chamber began to shimmer. The Council's security systems should have prevented any kind of teleportation or intrusion, but there it was, a human, simply appearing out of thin air. He wore a dark blue uniform with silver stripes on the shoulders. His face was weathered but calm, and his gray hair was cut short in what they would later learn was a military style. The council members froze, their security guards raising weapons that somehow wouldn't fire. "Good evening," the human said, looking around the room with a slight smile. "I am Admiral Reed of the Earth Space Force. I apologize for interrupting your meeting, but we thought it was time for a proper introduction." Council Leader White stood up, trying to hide his fear. How did you bypass our security?" Admiral Reed ignored the question. "We've known about your empire for quite some time now. We've watched your ships watching us. We've studied your technology, your society, your history." He paused, looking each council member in the eye. "And we've come to deliver a message. Leave us alone or face extinction." Commander Stone laughed, but it was a nervous laugh. "You dare threaten the Galactic Empire? We have ruled these stars for 10,000 years. We have technologies you couldn't even dream of." 10,000 years. Reed's smile grew slightly wider, but it didn't reach his eyes. 10,000 years of peace, of order, of everything going exactly as planned. He walked around the table slowly. "But tell me, what happens to a weapon that's never been fired? To armor that's never been tested? To soldiers who've never faced death?" The chamber grew quiet. The humans' words carried a weight that none of them wanted to acknowledge. "We've spent our entire history fighting," Reed continued, "against ourselves, against our world, against the laws of physics themselves. Every piece of technology we own was born from conflict, refined in war, perfected in battles you couldn't imagine." "This is absurd," White declared, but his voice trembled slightly. "You are one species, barely out of your cradle. We are an empire of 1,000 worlds." Reed reached the spot where he had first appeared. "That's why we're giving you this warning. One chance to avoid what's coming. Because unlike you, we don't enjoy war. We're just very, very good at it." He looked up at the council one last time. "You have one standard galactic month to withdraw all forces from human space. After that, well, remember that we warned you." Before anyone could respond, Reed vanished just as mysteriously as he had appeared. The council chamber erupted in chaos, members shouting over each other, demanding explanations, calling for immediate action. But Council Leader White sat quietly, a cold fear growing in his chest. In 10,000 years of ruling the galaxy, no species had ever dared to threaten the Empire. No species had ever shown the capability to bypass their best security so easily. and no species had ever smiled while delivering a warning of war. He looked at the reports again, seeing them in a new light. Perhaps they had made a terrible mistake in observing these humans. Perhaps they had drawn the attention of something that should have been left alone. But it was too late now. The Empire would never bow to threats. They would show these humans the true meaning of power. After all, what could one young species possibly do against the masters of the galaxy? As the Council argued, none of them noticed that all their classified files about humanity had been deleted, replaced with a single message: "We warned you to run." 2 weeks after Admiral Reed's warning, the Empire's scout fleet approached the human colony on Mars, the red planet in humanity's home system. 5 massive Imperial ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, their golden hulls gleaming in the sunlight. Each ship was the size of a small city, packed with the Empire's best weapons and strongest shields. Fleet Commander Black stood on his bridge, looking at the small human ships that protected the colony. They were tiny compared to Imperial vessels, barely the size of cargo shuttles. His scanner showed primitive metal hulls and basic energy readings. "This will be quick," Black said to his crew. "Show these humans what real power looks like. Target their lead ship." The Empire's flagship fired its main weapon, a beam of pure energy that could cut through a moon. The human ship should have been vaporized instantly. Instead, something impossible happened. The beam hit what looked like a bubble around the small ship and simply disappeared. No explosion, no damage, nothing. "Impossible," Black shouted. "Scan that shield." Before his crew could respond, the human ships moved. They didn't fly like proper ships. They moved like insects, darting in impossible patterns, breaking every rule of space combat that the Empire had written over thousands of years. A calm voice came over their communication system. "This is Captain Marcus of the Earth Space Force. That was your free shot. Now it's our turn." The human ships released what looked like clouds of silver dust. Black laughed at first, until the dust ate through his ship's shields like they weren't there. The mighty Imperial shields, perfected over millennia, were useless against this primitive-looking weapon. "How?" Black whispered as his crew panicked around him. "Our shields can stop anything." "Anything you've encountered before," Captain Marcus replied, somehow hearing him. "But you've never fought humans, have you? We call this our nanoswarm. Small machines, billions of them, learning and adapting as they fight. Every time you try to stop them, they learn from it and get stronger." Black watched in horror as the silver clouds covered his ships. Where they touched, Imperial metal turned to dust. Weapons stopped working. Systems failed. "All ships, retreat," Black ordered. But 3 of his ships were already dead in space, their crews evacuating in escape pods. The 4th exploded as its power core failed. Only Black's flagship managed to turn around. As they prepared to jump to faster-than-light speed, his sensors officer shouted in panic, "Sir, the humans. They're taking our ships apart. Their shuttles are carrying pieces away. They're studying our technology as they fight us." Through the view screen, Black saw small human ships cutting precise pieces from his dead vessels. They were learning, analyzing, and adapting in the middle of battle. In all his years of service, he had never seen anything like it. "Send a warning to the Empire," Black ordered as his ship jumped to safety. "The humans, they don't fight like a normal enemy. They learn. They adapt. His words were cut short as his ship's systems started failing one by one. A single human voice came through their dying communication system. "Captain Marcus again. Don't worry, Commander. We let one ship escape on purpose. Your Empire needs to understand what they're dealing with. Check your cargo hold. We left you a gift." Black ordered his crew to the cargo hold. There they found a small black box with a simple message printed on it. "Thanks for the weapons test. Your technology will help us prepare better for next time." As his ship limped home, Black realized the truth. This wasn't a victory for the humans. It wasn't even a real battle. It was just a test, a chance for humans to study Imperial technology. They had learned more about the Empire's military capabilities in 10 minutes of combat than the Empire had learned about humans in months of observation. And the worst part, Black knew the humans had held back. They could have destroyed all 5 ships, but they chose to let one escape. They'd wanted the Empire to know what happened. They wanted to spread fear. For the first time in his career, Black felt real terror. The Empire had ruled the galaxy through power and fear for 10,000 years. But now they faced an enemy who didn't fear them at all. An enemy who saw their best weapons as nothing more than chances to learn and grow stronger. As his ship crawled toward home, Black wondered if Admiral Reed's warning had been too gentle. Perhaps instead of run, he should have said beg. Emperor Grey stood before the massive window of his command ship, watching as 10,000 Imperial vessels gathered for war. The largest fleet in Imperial history filled the space around him, their golden hulls forming an ocean of metal and light. After the scout fleet's humiliation, he had ordered every available ship to join the invasion force. "Let's see how these humans handle real Imperial power," he said, his voice cold with anger. The loss of 4 scout ships had damaged the Empire's reputation. Some younger races were already showing signs of rebellion. This had to be stopped now. The fleet carried new weapons and stronger shields, designed to counter the humans' nanoswarm technology. The Emperor was confident that no force in the galaxy could stand against such might. "All ships report ready, Emperor," announced Fleet Master Steele. "We can reach Earth within 6 hours." "Then let us end this quickly," Emperor Grey ordered. "Jump." The massive fleet vanished into faster-than-light travel. But when they arrived at Earth's solar system, something was wrong. Very wrong. Earth's space was empty. No ships, no stations, no signs of life. "Where are they?" Emperor Grey demanded. "Scan everything." Before the scanners could complete their work, space itself seemed to tear open around the Imperial fleet. Thousands of human ships appeared from nowhere, but they were different from before. These ships were huge, nearly matching Imperial vessels in size. They were black as space itself, their surfaces crawling with what looked like living metal. Admiral Reed's voice echoed through every Imperial ship. "You should have run when you had the chance." The human ships didn't waste time with warnings or demands. They attacked instantly, and the Empire learned what real war looked like. The human ships didn't just fight. They evolved during battle. When Imperial weapons hit their shields, the shields adapted and grew stronger. When Imperial ships tried to escape, the humans predicted their routes and cut them off. It was like fighting an enemy that could see the future. "Impossible," Steele shouted as another 100 Imperial ships exploded. "They're using our own weapons against us, improved versions of them." Emperor Grey watched in horror as human ships released clouds of something darker than the nanoswarm. These weren't just machines. They were a combination of artificial intelligence and living metal. Where they touched Imperial ships, the metal came alive, turning ships against their own crews. "My Emperor," Steele's voice shook, "we're losing ships too fast. Their technology, it's not just advanced, it's alive." A massive human battleship approached the Emperor's command vessel. Its surface rippled like water, weapons growing and changing as they watched. This was technology beyond anything the Empire had ever seen. "You had 1,000 worlds and 10,000 years." Admiral Reed's voice came again. "We had one world and constant war. You built an empire. We built survival machines. Now you see the difference." The Emperor watched as his mighty fleet was torn apart. Ships that had ruled the galaxy for millennia were being destroyed by weapons that seemed to break the laws of physics. The humans hadn't just caught up to Imperial technology. They had taken it in directions the Empire had never imagined. "Full retreat," Emperor Grey finally ordered, his pride shattered. All ships jumped to safety. But only 3,000 of his 10,000 ships managed to escape. The rest were either destroyed or captured, their technology already being absorbed and improved by the human war machines. As his command ship fled through faster than light space, Emperor Grey received one final message from Admiral Reed. "This was just our defensive fleet. Would you like to see our actual warships?" The Emperor sank into his throne, a terrible realization hitting him. The humans had never been primitive. They had never been weaker. They had simply been waiting, watching, learning. And now, the Empire had given them a reason to show their true power. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Empire hadn't just lost a battle. They had awakened something that might destroy everything they had built. And the worst part, this was still just the beginning. Intelligence Officer Tom sat in his dark office aboard the Imperial Archive Station, surrounded by floating screens showing human history. After the fleet's devastating defeat, the Empire had finally decided to understand their enemy. What Tom discovered kept him awake at night. "Computer, show me Earth's war records again," he commanded. The screens lit up with images that made his 3 hearts beat faster. Unlike every other known species, humans had never unified before reaching space. They had fought wars constantly, against each other, against their environment, against everything. Their entire history was an endless chain of conflicts. "Sir," his assistant Rob entered the office, carrying more data chips. "You need to see this. We found their entertainment records." Tom loaded the chips and felt a chill run through his body. The humans didn't just fight wars. They imagined them. Countless stories about wars that never happened, battles against imaginary enemies, conflicts that could never exist. They spent their leisure time thinking about war. "Look at this," Tom pointed to one screen. In just 100 years on their home planet, they went from flying with simple engines to dropping world-destroying bombs. "Do you understand what that means?" Rob looked confused. "They advanced quickly." "No," Tom's voice shook. "They advanced because they had to. Every human war pushed their technology forward. They didn't develop technology for exploration like we did. They built it to survive, to win, to kill." The screens showed more images, humans fighting in frozen wastelands, in burning deserts, under oceans, in space. No other species had learned to fight in so many ways, in so many places. "Sir, what about this?" Rob pointed to another screen. "Their training methods." Tom had been studying that for hours. Human soldiers trained by putting themselves through hell. They ran until they couldn't stand, fought until they broke, then got up and did it again. Imperial soldiers trained to fight. Human soldiers trained to keep fighting after they should be dead. And their backup plans, Tom continued, pulling up more files. Humans don't just plan for victory. They plan for defeat. They plan for total destruction. Every human weapon system has a dead man switch. If they die, their enemies die with them. The screens showed more disturbing information. Humans had built weapons they agreed never to use, then kept them ready anyway. They had plans for wars they hoped would never happen. They prepared for invasions from enemies that didn't exist. "Computer, show the adaptation rates," Tom ordered. A new graph appeared, showing how quickly humans developed new technology during conflicts. "This is impossible," Rob whispered. "According to this, they advance 10 times faster during war than peace. No species does that." "Because no species is like them," Tom replied. "We fight wars to win. Humans fight wars to learn, to evolve, to become stronger. Every conflict makes them more dangerous." Tom stood up and walked to the main screen, which showed Earth, the human homeworld. "Do you know what's most frightening? We've been fighting them wrong. All our tactics, all our strategies, they're designed to fight civilized enemies." "What do you mean?" "Imperial tactics are built on 10,000 years of organized warfare, formation fighting, strategic battles, proper military doctrine." Tom's hand shook as he pointed to the screen. "But humans, they fight like cornered animals. They break rules they don't even know exist. They do things that make no strategic sense, just because we won't expect them." A message flashed across their screens. Another human attack had destroyed 3 Imperial outposts. But these attacks made no strategic sense. They weren't capturing territory or resources. They're testing us, Tom realized. Every battle, every encounter, they're learning our responses, our capabilities, our limits. We're not fighting a war. He looked at Rob with fear in his eyes. We're being studied, like bacteria in a lab. Rob looked at the screens, at the endless records of human conflicts. What do? We do what they warned us to do, Tom whispered. We run. Because if we don't. He looked at one last screen, showing the human military doctrine. If defeat is unavoidable, ensure maximum enemy casualties. Either we run, Tom continued, or we find out why every species that ever fought humans either disappeared or learned to fear them. And I don't want to learn that lesson firsthand. The Imperial border station's alarm screamed to life as hundreds of human ships appeared from nowhere. But these weren't the black, living metal ships from before. These were different, sleek silver vessels that seemed to glow with inner light. Project Phoenix is ready, Admiral Reed's voice echoed through space. Begin the counterattack. Station Commander Brown watched in horror as the human ships split apart like falling stars, each piece becoming a fully functional ship of its own. One ship became 2, then 4, then 16, an endless multiplication of destruction. How is this possible? He whispered, watching his sensor screens overflow with targets. Ships can't just multiply. The answer came as he watched the first Imperial Defense Fleet engage the human ships. When Imperial weapons struck a human vessel, the damage repaired itself instantly. Broken pieces pulled themselves back together, metal flowing like water to seal wounds. It's not multiplication, Brown's science officer said, her voice filled with awe. They're not splitting. They're growing. Like living things. The Phoenix ships proved unstoppable. Traditional weapons couldn't kill them. Standard tactics were useless against an enemy that treated destruction as a minor inconvenience. Every time an Imperial ship managed to destroy one, its pieces would form 2 new ships, stronger and more aggressive than before. Brown sent an emergency message to Imperial Command. They're not fighting a war anymore. They're spreading like a virus. Across Imperial space, more Phoenix fleets appeared. They targeted military bases, shipyards, weapon factories, but carefully avoided civilian targets. This wasn't random destruction. This was surgical removal of the Empire's ability to fight back. New report from Sector 7. Brown's communication officer called out. The humans, they're uploading something into our systems, some kind of code that's changing our technology. On screen after screen, Brown watched Imperial weapons turn against their own ships. Defense systems shut down. Shield generators reversed polarity. The humans weren't just defeating the Empire's technology. They were turning it traitor. Sir, the science officer's voice cracked with fear. We're detecting biological signatures from the Phoenix ships. They're part organic. They're evolving during battle. Brown understood then what they were facing. These weren't just ships with repair systems. These were artificial life forms, designed to grow stronger from every defeat, learn from every encounter, adapt to every defense. A new message flashed across his screens, a broadcast being sent to every Imperial world. Your weapons cannot stop us. Your shields cannot hold us. Every punch you throw teaches us how to hit back harder. We gave you a chance to run. You chose to fight. Now learn why humanity has never lost a war of survival. Through his station's viewports, Brown watched Imperial ships trying to retreat, only to be caught and consumed by the growing fleet of Phoenix vessels. Each destroyed Imperial ship provided more material for the human vessels to grow and multiply. Sir, his tactical officer reported, we're detecting massive energy signatures. The Phoenix ships, they're not just destroying our bases. They're absorbing them, learning from them. Our own technology is making them stronger. Brown thought about the intelligence reports he'd read, about humanity's history of constant warfare, about their drive to survive at any cost. Now he understood. The Empire hadn't just started a war. They had triggered humanity's survival instincts, and this was the result. The station shook as the first Phoenix ships reached them. Through the hull, Brown could hear something impossible, the sound of metal singing. The human ships weren't just attacking. They were calling to Imperial technology, speaking to it in a language of science and evolution that the Empire had never imagined possible. "Send one last message to Imperial Command," Brown ordered as his station's systems began to turn against him. Tell them we didn't wake a sleeping giant. We woke something worse. We woke a species that turns defeat into evolution, death into multiplication, and war into growth. God help us all." Emperor Grey stood in the Empire's last fortress, a massive space station hidden in the heart of a dying star. Around him, the remaining Imperial leaders watched as their final weapon was prepared, a device that could shatter planets into dust. "Deploy the planet killers to all human worlds," Grey ordered, his voice hard with desperate anger. "If we cannot rule them, we will end them." The mighty weapons, each the size of a small moon, emerged from their secret hangars. These were the Empire's ultimate tools of destruction, kept hidden for 10,000 years. In all their history, they had never needed to use them. Until now. "My Emperor," Fleet Master Steele warned, "are you certain? This will break all galactic laws. Even our own people will turn against us." "We have no choice," Grey replied. "The humans have taken half our worlds. Their Phoenix ships multiply faster than we can destroy them. If we don't stop them now, the Empire dies." The planet killers moved into position, their ancient engines glowing with terrible power. Each one could destroy a world with a single shot. The Empire had built 12 of them. That's when every screen in the fortress turned red. A simple message appeared. "Dead Hand Protocol activated. Thank you for confirming your hostile intent." The human ships appeared suddenly, but they were different now. Gone were the silver Phoenix vessels. These ships were enormous, black as the space between stars, their surfaces covered in weapons that the Empire had never seen before. Admiral Reed's voice filled the fortress. "Did you think you were the only ones with hidden weapons? We've had 10 years to prepare for this moment, to build things we hoped we'd never need to use." The planet killers fired their world-ending beams at Earth, but the beams never reached their target. They'd vanished into what looked like holes in space itself. Human weapons that didn't just stop attacks, but erased them from existence. "Impossible," Grey shouted. "Nothing can stop the planet killers." "Nothing you've encountered before," Reed replied. "But we knew you had these weapons. We found them years ago. We've been building counters to them ever since. This is why we let you think you were hiding them successfully." The fortress shook as the human ships began their attack. But they didn't use beams or missiles or even the Phoenix ships. They used something much worse. "Reality anchors engaged," a human voice announced. "Shutting down altered space." Around the fortress, space itself began to change. The artificial pocket of stable space inside the star began to collapse. The Empire's greatest works of science were being undone by human technology that treated the laws of physics like suggestions. "You don't understand what you've done," Grey said, watching his fortress's defenses fail one by one. "These weapons are tied to the Empire itself. If they're destroyed, the power holding our worlds together fails." "We know," Reed answered. "We've already evacuated all civilians from Imperial worlds, yours and ours. We've been doing it secretly for months. The only people at risk now are the ones who chose to stay and fight." The fortress's screen showed impossible images. Human ships creating bubbles of altered space, safely containing the explosions of dying Imperial worlds. They weren't just winning the war. They were controlling how the Empire fell. "Final warning," Reed announced. "Surrender now, and we'll protect your people through the collapse. Fight on, and you'll face the full deployment of the Dead Hand Protocol." "What are you?" Grey whispered, watching his empire crumble. "What kind of species builds weapons that can control reality itself?" "We're human," Reed replied simply. "We're what happens when you force a species to spend its entire history preparing for the worst. You just became the worst, so we responded appropriately." Gray looked at his leaders, saw the fear in their eyes, and made his final mistake. "All forces, attack," he ordered. "Die for the Empire." "Wrong choice," Reed said sadly. "Dead hand protocol, full activation authorized." The last thing Emperor Gray saw before his fortress fell was a sight that would haunt the galaxy's dreams for millennia to come. The sight of humans showing their true power, unleashed at last. The remaining members of the Imperial High Council sat in their emergency bunker deep beneath their last surviving capital world. The room was dark, lit only by emergency lights that cast long shadows on tired faces. They had lost everything in just 6 months of war. Council Leader White looked at the latest reports with empty eyes. 970 of their 1,000 worlds were now empty, their populations safely evacuated by humans before the Imperial technology binding them together failed. The mighty empire had been reduced to a handful of planets in less than half a year. "How did we lose so completely?" asked Commander Stone, his once proud uniform now wrinkled and worn. "We had 10,000 years of power. We had technology they couldn't imagine." The air in the center of the room began to shimmer, just like it had months ago when this all began. Admiral Reed appeared, but this time he wasn't alone. With him stood a group of human scientists and military leaders. "You lost," Reed said calmly, "because you never understood what you were fighting. The humans didn't come with weapons. Instead, they activated a hologram showing the full history of the war. But this time, they showed their side of it. We discovered your empire 15 years ago," Reed explained. "We spent 5 years studying you in secret. 5 years learning your technology, understanding your weaknesses, and preparing for the worst. The hologram showed human ships, invisible to Imperial sensors, watching the Empire's every move. It showed vast underground facilities where humans built weapons they hoped they'd never need to use. 5 years ago, we could have destroyed you," one of the scientists said. "But that's not our way. We always offer peace first. That's why we warned you." The council watched in shock as the hologram showed human fleets, hidden in dimensional pockets, ready to strike from the very beginning. The Phoenix ships, the reality anchors, the dead hand protocol. All of it had been ready before the first warning was ever given. "You had a choice," Reed continued. "When I first appeared in your council chamber, you could have listened. You could have chosen peace. Instead, you chose pride." "But why?" White asked, his voice breaking. "Why show us all this now?" "Because you need to understand," Reed replied. "Humanity isn't naturally warlike. We don't enjoy conflict. We're good at war because we had to be. Because our history taught us to be ready for anything." Another human stepped forward, her face kind but her eyes hard with determination. "Your empire ruled through fear for 10,000 years. You never faced a real challenge, never had to adapt or grow. You became stagnant, believing your power was absolute. While you were building an empire," Reed added, "we were building survival machines. While you were writing laws of war, we were learning to break them. While you were celebrating peace, we were preparing for the worst." The hologram showed one final image, the galaxy, but different now. A quarter of it marked in human colors, the former Imperial worlds now free and independent. "This sector is now under human protection," Reed announced. "Not control, protection. Every world is free to govern itself. We'll defend them all, help them rebuild. And most importantly, we'll teach them what we learned from this war." "And what's that?" Stone asked bitterly. "That power isn't about size or age or technology," Reed answered. "It's about adaptation, about learning, about being ready to face the unknown." The hologram faded, and Reed looked at each council member in turn. "You have 2 choices now. Stay on your remaining worlds, live in peace, and learn to grow again. Or what?" White whispered. "Run." Reed said simply, "Run to the far edges of the galaxy. Because if you ever threaten peace again, if you ever try to rebuild your empire of fear, you'll learn why even our allies are careful never to make us angry." The humans vanished, leaving behind a single floating message. "This was your only warning. Next time, we won't be so gentle." In the darkness of their bunker, the council finally understood. They hadn't lost to a superior empire or a more advanced civilization. They had lost to something far more dangerous, a species that had turned survival itself into an art form. And across the galaxy, a new saying spread among the stars. If you value your empire, never fight humans. If you value your survival, never make them fight at all.